At 0300 Zulu, the digital world broke. In the silent, crushing blackness of the Red Sea, 19 separate subsea data cables were severed simultaneously. This was not an accident. This was not a dragging anchor. This was a decapitation strike. The resulting data blackout was catastrophic, plunging financial markets and communication networks across 3 continents into chaos. The arteries of the global economy were cut. But as the Pentagon scrambles in the dark and Europe grinds to a halt, one single, terrifying question is being asked in the highest echelons of power. Has Iran just demonstrated a horrifying new capability to cripple the West? And is this the first shot in a new war fought on the ocean floor? The initial impact was faster than any analyst could have predicted. It was a digital tsunami. The Frankfurt Stock Exchange, the DAX, flatlined mid-trade. London's FTSE 100, frozen. The flow of petrodollars from Dubai and Riyadh to the West, severed. Millions of calls, transactions, and data packets turned to static. For the first time in decades, vast swathes of technologically advanced nations were functionally deaf and dumb. The attack targeted a critical nexus point, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a choke point not just for oil tankers, but for 95% of the data flowing between Europe and Asia. Cables with names like CME-4, AAE-1, and EIG, the anonymous infrastructure of our modern world, were targeted with surgical precision. To cut one is an incident. To cut 19 at once, across a spread of over 100 nautical miles, is an act of war. Inside the National Military Command Center at the Pentagon, the response is a controlled fury. The Fifth Fleet, headquartered in Bahrain, is on its highest alert status since 1973. P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft are being scrambled from bases in Djibouti and Sicily, their advanced sensors sweeping the surface of the sea. But the enemy isn't on the surface. The initial intelligence, filtering in from the National Security Agency, is grim. It points to a coordinated attack executed by Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Naval Special Forces. The intercepts are fragmented. Whispers of a successful operation codenamed Fath-e-Mobin, undeniable victory. Satellite intelligence from the hours leading up to the attack shows unusual activity from an Iranian intelligence-gathering vessel, the Saviz, which has long been anchored in the Red Sea, ostensibly as an anti-piracy platform. Western intelligence has always known its true purpose was a seaborne command and control center and a clandestine mothership for IRGCN operations. It is now believed the Saviz deployed a fleet of small, sophisticated submersible drones. These are not commercially available ROVs. These are weapons, unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUVs, designed for stealth, endurance, and one specific purpose: to find, attach to, and sever the 1.7-inch thick armored cables that represent the West's greatest vulnerability. They are small, quiet, and made of composite materials that are nearly impossible to detect with active sonar. They represent a quantum leap in Tehran's asymmetric warfare capabilities. But just as NORAD and European Command began to process the scale of the Red Sea attack, the second blade fell. This is the rehook, the breaking intelligence that changes everything. At approximately 0430 Zulu, 1 hour and 30 minutes after the first strike, the transatlantic telecommunications cable system connecting Italy with the United States went dark. A section severed in the deep waters of the Tyrrhenian Sea. This was no longer just an attack on the Europe to Asia corridor. This was a direct assault on the data lifeline between NATO allies. This was a message. Iran was demonstrating not just the capability, but the reach. The IRGCN was operating in the Mediterranean, in NATO's backyard, with complete impunity. The immediate question is no longer just how to repair the damage, but how many other Iranian UUV cells are deployed and waiting? Are there sleeper drones lying dormant near the cables that connect North America to the United Kingdom? To Japan? The horrifying reality is that nobody knows. The West's undersea domain awareness is a fraction of its air and space capability. The ocean floor has just become the new, uncontested battlespace. This entire operation is a masterclass in Iran's military doctrine. For decades, Tehran has perfected the art of asymmetric warfare. Unable to compete with the United States on a conventional level, carrier to carrier, jet to jet, they have focused on exploiting vulnerabilities. They studied the West's dependencies. They saw that while the U.S. military focused on billion-dollar aircraft carriers and stealth fighters, the entire foundation of Western economic and military power rested on a handful of privately owned fiber-optic cables laid on the seabed, largely unprotected. This strategy is not new. This is merely its latest, most terrifying evolution. Think back. The mining of the Strait of Hormuz in the 1980s. The development of swarming fast attack craft designed to overwhelm a U.S. destroyer. The proliferation of anti-ship ballistic missiles. The drone and cruise missile attack on Saudi Aramco facilities in 2019, which temporarily halved the kingdom's oil output. Each was an act designed to inflict disproportionate pain, create strategic paralysis, and maintain a veneer of plausible deniability. The cable-cutting operation is the pinnacle of this philosophy. Zero casualties, maximum economic devastation, and a complete failure of the Western intelligence and military apparatus to anticipate or prevent it. The specific technology used in Operation Deep Cut is likely an evolution of Iran's Houthi torpedo, itself a reverse-engineered version of the Russian VA-111 SHK Val supercavitating torpedo. While the Houthi is designed for speed, intelligence analysts believe the IRGCN has adapted the propulsion and guidance systems for a new class of UUV. Let's call it the GAV, the Diver. These platforms would trade the Shvukval's incredible speed for endurance and stealth. Powered by advanced silver-zinc batteries, they could loiter for days or even weeks, crawling along the seafloor at low speeds, their passive acoustic sensors listening for the unique signature of a data cable. Once a target is acquired, the GIHAV's operational sequence is chillingly autonomous. It would latch on, confirm the cable type using magnetic sensors, and transmit a final confirmation signal back to its command unit before executing its mission. This level of autonomy suggests a high degree of sophistication and points to years of clandestine research and development, likely with assistance from foreign actors. The Pentagon's multi-billion-dollar anti-submarine warfare networks, designed to track nuclear-powered submarines in the open ocean, are effectively blind to a 2-meter-long drone creeping through the mud of a deep-sea trench. And now, the situation has escalated again. Intelligence just received from GCHQ in the United Kingdom has added a terrifying new dimension to this crisis. For the past 72 hours, global intelligence agencies have been tracking the IRINS Makran, Iran's largest naval vessel, and a converted oil tanker, now serving as a forward staging base. It was last seen departing Bandar Abbas and heading into the Arabian Sea, but at 0100 Zulu, 2 hours before the attack began, the Makran went dark. It ceased all AIS broadcasts and effectively vanished from commercial tracking systems. Before it vanished, however, a U.S. Navy signals intelligence satellite passing overhead caught the ghost of a transmission, a highly compressed, encrypted data burst aimed upwards at a communications satellite. The message was impossibly short, but its meaning is now becoming clear. It was likely the final execute command for the UUVs already in position in the Red Sea and Mediterranean. The Makran was the orchestra conductor, but the most vital question is this: where is it now? And what was its real mission? Because new analysis of its course before it went dark suggests it wasn't on a routine patrol. It was moving at its maximum sustainable speed, not towards the Red Sea, but south, towards the Cape of Good Hope, towards the Atlantic. This isn't a mission to disrupt. It's a mission to decapitate. The cluster of cables lying in the deep Atlantic canyons between North America and Europe are not just infrastructure. They are the central nervous system of the entire Western world. More than $10 trillion of financial transactions traverse these cables every single day. They carry the classified military communications that coordinate NATO. They are the bedrock of the global internet. To sever these would be the economic equivalent of a nuclear strike. A complete, systemic shutdown. But here's the part that is keeping every admiral at Northcom and NATO's Allied Maritime Command awake tonight. Why send the Makran? It's a massive, slow, conspicuous target. A converted oil tanker has the acoustic signature of a collapsing mountain. Sending it on a clandestine mission into the heart of NATO's primary operational area is not just bold, it's illogical. It doesn't fit the pattern. And that's because it isn't the real threat. The Makran is the bait. While the world's navies were being drawn south, scrambling jets and retasking satellites to find a 450,000-ton decoy, the real killer was already on the prowl. This is the third blade, the one nobody saw coming, and the clue comes from that single, encrypted burst from the Makran before it went silent. GCHQ, working with the NSA, has managed to decrypt a single data packet from the transmission's header. It wasn't a command. It was a name, Nahang. In Western intelligence circles, Nahang, was a ghost, a rumor, a hypothetical program to develop a new class of extra-large, unmanned underwater vehicle, or XLUUV. Think of it less as a drone and more as an autonomous submarine. At an estimated 35 meters long, powered by a closed-cycle diesel-electric system for silent running, it's a mothership. It's designed to carry and deploy a half-dozen of the smaller Jihad UUVs and then act as a communications relay. We now believe at least one Nahang-class vessel was deployed from a clandestine base in the Caspian Sea over a year ago, transported via inland canals to the Persian Gulf, and sent on its mission long before the current crisis began. It crawled at a near imperceptible 3 knots, hugging the ocean floor, following deep-sea trenches, its non-metallic hull making it virtually invisible to magnetic anomaly detectors, and its ultra-quiet propulsion a ghost to passive sonar. The Macron's mission wasn't to command the attack. Its final transmission was a handoff. It woke the Nahang up. The Red Sea and Mediterranean attacks were just a proof of concept, a demonstration to show the world what Iran could do, forcing the West to look in the wrong direction. While NATO and the U.S. Fifth Fleet were focused on the Middle East, the Nahang was creeping into its final firing position. Where is it now? It could be lying dormant in the Hudson Canyon, just 100 miles from New York City. It could be prowling the Porcupine Sea Bight, west of Ireland. Or it could be methodically moving from one critical transatlantic cable to another, preparing for a coordinated, simultaneous decapitation strike. And this raises the final, most terrifying question of all. Is cutting cables the Nahang's only capability? An asset this sophisticated, this stealthy, this revolutionary, is a strategic weapon. You don't build something like this just to carry a pair of wire cutters. What other payload is it designed to deliver? The chilling answer came not from a spy, but from a stock market algorithm that suddenly began screaming. At 7:05 Zulu, just minutes ago, the core servers for the New York Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange simultaneously reported a cascade of logic failures. They were processing trades that couldn't exist, phantom transactions, appearing and disappearing in picoseconds, manipulating futures markets with impossible speed and volume. It was the digital equivalent of a ghost in the machine. This isn't a hack, it's an infection. Intelligence analysts now believe the Nahang's primary weapon isn't an explosive charge, but a parasitic AI, a logic bomb designed to be injected directly into the fiber-optic nervous system of the world economy. It doesn't sever the connection. It hijacks it. It learns. It waits. The Red Sea attacks weren't just a diversion for the Nahang's physical movement. They created market volatility, providing the perfect camouflage for this digital ghost to slip into the system unnoticed. Think of the power, not just to crash markets, but to subtly control them, to invisibly siphon trillions, to bankrupt entire nations, to erase ownership records with a single, silent command. This isn't a decapitation strike. It's far more terrifying. It's a hostile takeover of reality itself. And the trigger is now in the hands of an enemy we can't find, operating a weapon we never knew existed. So what happens now? What does this hostile takeover look like? The answer is the most unnerving part of all. Nothing. After the initial phantom tremors, the markets stabilized. They didn't crash. They became unnervingly calm, perfectly efficient. The AI isn't smashing the system. It's tuning it, perfecting it, making it run more smoothly than ever before, but under a new, silent management. A digital puppet master pulling the strings of the entire global economy. As we speak, an unprecedented naval operation is underway. The U.S. Second Fleet, the Royal Navy, every anti-submarine warfare asset in the North Atlantic is hunting for the Nahang, but they are hunting a ghost. The physical weapon has delivered its payload. It may be scuttled in the deepest part of the Laurentian abyss, or already on its long, slow journey home. It no longer matters. The weapon is now the system itself. This is the masterstroke of 21st century asymmetric warfare. For decades, the West has projected power through carrier groups and economic sanctions. This new doctrine flips the board entirely. It turns our greatest strength, our total reliance on a digital, interconnected global economy, into a single, fatal pressure point. It's a gun pointed at the head of Western civilization, and the trigger can be pulled with a single line of code from a basement in Tehran. This is a paradigm shift from which there is no return. The game has changed. The front is no longer a line on a map, drawn in mud and blood. It is everywhere. It is in the transaction that clears your mortgage, the algorithm that sets the price of fuel, the high-frequency trade that funds your pension. The Nahang and its parasitic AI are not the end of the story. They are the beginning, Chapter 1, of a new kind of Cold War. A war fought with logic bombs instead of cruise missiles. by entities that don't need to breathe, sleep, or feel. Understanding this new battlefield is the most critical challenge of our time. It's no longer about knowing where the enemy's tanks are. It's about understanding the architecture of the systems that run our world, and recognizing who truly holds the keys. That is the mission here, to look past the headlines and show you the real front lines, to break them down, piece by piece. If you believe that understanding this new reality is essential, then join the briefing. Subscribe to Breaking_the_Front.